Imagine a crowded room filled with laughter, glasses clinking, voices overlapping in a chorus of surface-level cheer. People exchange polite nods, make jokes they've told a dozen times before, and talk about everything and nothing in the same breath. Somewhere in the corner of that room stands someone who doesn't quite belong, not because they can't, but because they choose not to. Their body is present, but their mind is elsewhere, wandering through questions that no one else seems to be asking. They are not shy. They are not broken. They are thinking. This quiet figure in the corner represents a phenomenon few understand but many feel. It is the invisible struggle of the intelligent mind in a world obsessed with social stimulation. Society celebrates sociability as a virtue, extroversion as a sign of strength, and constant interaction as evidence of a healthy life. But what happens when a mind is built not for chatter, but for contemplation? What if some individuals do not withdraw from society out of fear or inability, but out of clarity? The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer saw this long before psychology gave it a name. He believed that intelligent people often turn away from social life, not because they dislike others, but because they see through the illusion of it. For Schopenhauer, most human interaction was a form of distraction, a way to escape boredom, to avoid the deeper realities of existence. He argued that the pursuit of wisdom requires solitude, not because solitude is easier, but because it is real. The intelligent mind, sensitive to truth and allergic to pretense, finds little nourishment in the repetition of social rituals. Instead, it hungers for meaning, for authenticity, for thought that goes beyond what is expected. And yet, the world rarely rewards this hunger. It labels it as aloofness, awkwardness, or arrogance. The result is a quiet internal conflict, a desire for connection weighed against a refusal to participate in the performance. In that crowded room, the intelligent individual does not hate the party, they simply refuse to pretend they enjoy it. And that refusal, misunderstood by many, is where their real journey begins. There is a moment that happens again and again for the intelligent mind, a moment of quiet disconnection in the middle of a conversation. Words are being spoken, heads are nodding, laughter occasionally fills the space, and yet something inside remains unmoved. It's not that the words are offensive or the people unpleasant. It's that the entire exchange feels hollow, like a performance without purpose. Schopenhauer saw this long before the modern world became saturated with small talk and social media. He believed that most conversations are not designed to convey truth, but to fill silence. People speak not to connect, but to avoid the discomfort of stillness. And for the mind that seeks depth, this becomes exhausting. The intelligent individual listens and hears not only what is said, but what is missing. They recognize the unspoken rules, the rehearsed pleasantries, the endless circling of topics that never touch the core. The more they see, the harder it becomes to participate. They begin to question, what is the point of speaking if we're not saying anything real? Why spend time pretending when silence would be more honest? This perception is not rooted in cynicism, but in sensitivity. The intelligent mind is sensitive to meaning. It craves it, and when it is absent, it notices. That absence becomes a weight, a dull ache that follows them through meetings, parties, even family gatherings. They start to feel like an actor in the wrong play, reading lines they didn't write. Schopenhauer understood this as the curse of perception, the ability to see through the illusion of social life, and in doing so, to no longer be able to enjoy it. He argued that the higher one's intellect, the more painfully obvious the pretense becomes. And so, the intelligent person begins to withdraw, not out of superiority, but out of self-preservation. They are not bored by others, but by the repetition of roles, the lack of authenticity, the shallow rituals performed in the name of connection. And this is where the illusion breaks. They begin to realize that most of what passes for communication is merely distraction, and that in seeking real meaning, they must look elsewhere, not in the noise of the crowd, but in the silence of thought. Solitude is one of the most misunderstood experiences in the modern world. It is often confused with loneliness, with absence, with lack. But for the intelligent mind, solitude is not a void, it is a sanctuary. It is not what is missing from life, but what makes life intelligible. Schopenhauer was uncompromising in this belief. He argued that only in solitude could a person come to know themselves, and only in knowing oneself could they begin to understand the world. To be alone is not to be abandoned. It is to be free from noise, from pretense, from the constant demand to perform. In solitude, the mind is no longer divided. It is whole. And for the intelligent individual, this wholeness is essential. While others may seek stimulation from outside through conversations, entertainment, or constant engagement, the thinking mind turns inward, not as a retreat, but as a return. It explores ideas, memories, possibilities. It wrestles with questions no one else is asking. It listens to the quiet voice beneath all the others, the voice of truth. This is not a rejection of others, but a recognition of the rare space where meaning is born. Solitude allows the mind to expand without interruption. It gives permission to feel deeply, to think without censorship, to confront both the beauty and terror of being alive. And in that confrontation, something begins to form an inner life that is rich, textured, and self-sustaining. Schopenhauer believed that those who cannot stand to be alone reveal a terrible truth: they are empty inside. They seek others not out of love, but out of fear of facing themselves. But the intelligent mind is different. It embraces solitude not because it dislikes company, but because it understands the value of its own presence. It knows that time alone is not time wasted, it is time refined. It is the ground where the seeds of wisdom are planted, where thought deepens, where authenticity takes root. And while the world rushes to avoid silence, the wise learn to listen to it. Because in that silence, everything begins not with noise, not with validation, but with clarity. There is a cost to seeing too much. The more a mind perceives, the more it feels. And for the intelligent individual, perception is rarely passive. It is relentless. It penetrates surface and structure, intention and contradiction. It notices what others ignore: the inconsistencies in human behavior, the self-deception in everyday rituals, the deep dissonance between what people say and what they mean. Over time, this awareness becomes a burden, not because knowledge itself is painful, but because it creates distance. Distance from what is commonly accepted. Distance from those who do not see. This is the quiet birth of intellectual loneliness, not the absence of people, but the absence of resonance. Conversations become difficult not due to a lack of words, but due to a lack of depth. Ideas remain unshared, thoughts unspoken, not out of secrecy, but out of futility. The intelligent mind begins to understand that what it wants cannot always be given. A listener who hears beneath the words, a mind that meets it halfway, a soul that recognizes the same longing for truth. Schopenhauer knew this solitude intimately. He wrote not to gain companionship, but to survive without it. His insights are filled with the ache of a man who saw too much and found too few who could see with him. He called it the curse of being ahead of one's time. And yet, this pain is not merely personal, it is existential. The intelligent person begins to confront questions others avoid. Why are we here? What matters when all is stripped away? Can truth be born in a world addicted to comfort? These are not abstract curiosities. They are lived questions felt in the silence after a shallow conversation, in the alienation that follows forced belonging, in the restlessness of the soul that refuses to sleep beneath illusions. And so, the intelligent individual drifts, not because they desire isolation, but because the cost of pretending has become too high. They do not reject others out of pride, but out of necessity. Their solitude is not a destination. It is the only honest place left to stand, a place where the mind may be heavy, but it is free. And in that freedom lies something rare, the chance to carry the weight of perception without breaking beneath it. Modern society is built upon the promise of belonging. From early childhood, we are taught that to be part of the group is to be safe, accepted, whole. We learn to smile when we feel empty, to agree when we have doubts, to speak when silence would be more honest. And so we perform day after day, year after year, until the performance becomes identity. But for the intelligent individual, this act begins to fray. They sense the gap between the image and the truth, between what people pretend to be and who they really are. And once that awareness takes root, it cannot be unlearned. Schopenhauer warned against this trap. He believed that much of what is called social life is nothing more than conformity, a quiet submission to expectation. People do not seek connection, he argued. They seek distraction. They do not belong to each other. They belong to a script written by fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of solitude. Fear of what it might mean to be truly seen. The intelligent mind sees through this. It recognizes that the cost of forced belonging is authenticity, that to be accepted by all often means to betray oneself. And so, they begin to let go, not of people, but of the illusion that they must always be included. They stop chasing invitations. They stop apologizing for their silence. They stop fearing the edges of the room where truth still lingers. But this path is not easy. Society punishes those who step outside the circle. They are labeled as strange, antisocial, arrogant. Few stop to ask whether their silence is a symptom of pride or simply a refusal to pretend. The intelligent person must learn to live with this misunderstanding, to carry the weight of invisibility without bitterness. And in doing so, they find something rare, the freedom to belong to themselves, no longer defined by the gaze of others, no longer shaped by the noise. In the quiet of their own thoughts, they reclaim the one form of belonging that cannot be taken in alignment with truth. And that alignment, though lonely, is the beginning of something real, a life not borrowed, not performed, but chosen. There is a danger that hides within solitude, a danger not of isolation, but of illusion. As the intelligent individual withdraws from the noise, from the trivial, from the hollow rituals of social life, they begin to feel clarity. In that clarity, they taste a freedom few ever experience. But with that freedom comes a shadow, the temptation to believe that stepping away means standing above. What begins as discernment can quietly evolve into judgment. The thinker, once wounded by the emptiness of small talk, may begin to see all conversation as meaningless. The philosopher, once misunderstood, may begin to see others as incapable. And the mind, once seeking truth, may slip into superiority. Schopenhauer was not blind to this. He understood that solitude, while sacred, is not sanctified. It must be navigated with humility, or it becomes a mirror that reflects only one's ego. He warned that the refusal to engage with others must not be confused with disdain, and that the rejection of illusion must not become the rejection of people. The truly wise do not isolate out of pride, they retreat out of purpose. And they return, not to be seen, but to serve. But this balance is difficult. The more one sees, the harder it is to tolerate the blindness of the world. The more one feels, the easier it becomes to close off. And so the intelligent person must confront their own shadow, the subtle arrogance that tells them no one else understands, that connection is futile, that solitude is proof of superiority. It is not. Solitude is a tool, not a throne. It sharpens the mind but must soften the heart. Because the purpose of perception is not to rise above, but to reach deeper. To see others not as distractions, but as reflections imperfect. Yes, but human. To remember that even those lost in illusion are seeking something real, even if they cannot name it. And so, the intelligent individual must remain vigilant, not only against the world's deceptions, but against their own. Because the greatest danger is not in being alone, it is in forgetting why you chose to be. Not all forms of engagement are equal. While society celebrates quantity, more friends, more followers, more connections, the intelligent individual learns to value something far rarer, depth. They understand that one meaningful conversation is worth more than 1,000 exchanges of noise. One true connection nourishes more than 100 shallow interactions. And so they begin to practice the art of selective engagement, not out of snobbery, but out of necessity. Schopenhauer believed that this kind of discernment was a hallmark of wisdom. He wrote that while solitude is essential for the cultivation of thought, occasional company could serve as a mirror reflecting aspects of ourselves we might otherwise overlook. But not all mirrors are clear. Many distort. Many distract. Many demand that we become something we are not just to belong. The intelligent person learns to say no to these mirrors. They are not seeking agreement, but resonance. Not attention, but alignment. They choose their company with care, not because they dislike people, but because they respect their own energy. They do not fear others. They fear becoming someone else in the presence of others. And so they learn to walk a narrow path, to open themselves without diluting themselves, to connect without conforming. This is not isolation. It is integrity. It is the decision to engage on one's own terms, not on the terms dictated by culture or convention. To speak only when there is something worth saying. To listen only when there is something worth hearing. To be with others, not to escape the self, but to expand it. Selective engagement is not about shrinking the world, it is about filtering it. It is a refusal to drown in the shallow, and a commitment to find the deep. It is not antisocial, it is anti-superficial. And in practicing this discernment, the intelligent individual finds something society rarely offers. A space where thought and feeling are not diminished by interaction, but elevated by it. A space where solitude and conversation can coexist not as enemies, but as allies. Not in opposition, but in harmony. There is a peculiar weight that comes with intelligence, a burden not of knowledge, but of awareness. The more a person understands, the more they see the cracks in the world, the contradictions in culture, the absurdity in ambition, the tragedy in what most call success. What once seemed ordinary now appears fragile. What once passed as truth now rings hollow. And this awakening, while powerful, is also isolating. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. And once you know, you cannot unknow. Schopenhauer understood this burden intimately. He believed that the deeper one's perception, the harder it becomes to live in ignorance, and the lonelier it becomes to live in truth. The intelligent individual walks through life carrying insights that often have no place to go. They look around and realize that most people are not asking the same questions. Not because they are incapable, but because they are not ready. And so, the thinker becomes silent. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they know few will listen. Not because they lack words, but because the words would fall like stones into still water, causing only ripples of discomfort. This is not elitism. It is grief. Grief for the lost potential of deeper connection. Grief for the silence that follows truth. Grief for a world that fears complexity and worships distraction. And yet, this burden is also a gift. For in carrying it, the intelligent individual is forced to build something inside something resilient, something real. They learn to live with unanswered questions. They learn to think without applause. They learn to feel deeply without demanding to be understood. This quiet endurance becomes a kind of strength, a strength not visible from the outside, but undeniable from within. And through it, they begin to see that their loneliness is not emptiness. It is evidence of depth. It is the echo of a mind that sees too much and loves too deeply to pretend otherwise. A mind that walks alone not because it must, but because the path ahead is one that few are willing to take. There comes a moment in every solitary journey where the silence begins to shift. The questions have been asked, the illusions pierced, the self encountered in its rawest form. And from that quiet fire emerges something unexpected, not more isolation, but the urge to give, to share, to light a torch from the flame you've kept burning in the dark. Schopenhauer, despite his critique of social life, understood this impulse. Though reclusive, he wrote prolifically. His words were not cries for connection, but offerings of truth messages in bottles cast into the future. He knew that wisdom, no matter how painfully earned, loses meaning if it never leaves the cave in which it was forged. The intelligent individual, too, must face this turning point. Solitude refines, but it must not hoard. Insight must not remain buried beneath layers of self-preservation. The fire you build within is not only to warm yourself, it is to bring light where others still stumble. But this sharing is not about validation. It is not a performance. It is a quiet act of generosity. A way of saying, here is what I've seen. Take what you need. And it can take many forms: writing, teaching, creating, listening. It does not require a stage, only sincerity. In doing so, the thinker transforms solitude from a personal refuge into a public resource. Their silence becomes speech, their inner world a bridge. And perhaps most importantly, they rediscover connection, not the kind forged in small talk or surface interaction, but the deeper kind that transcends time, place, even presence. A reader across the world, a listener in another decade, a soul quietly changed by something they cannot explain. This is the paradox Schopenhauer left us with, that though the wise must walk alone, their footsteps can still echo for others. That the more deeply we know ourselves, the more capable we become of offering something real. Not because we owe the world our truth, but because truth, once realized, longs to move, longs to heal, longs to be heard not by many, but by those ready to receive it. At the end of this journey, something becomes clear. The path of the intelligent mind is not a rejection of the world, nor a retreat into silence. It is a balancing act, a dance between presence and distance, thought and action, solitude and connection. Schopenhauer never asked us to disappear. He asked us to see clearly, to recognize the illusions that bind society, the worship of busyness, the addiction to approval, the fear of stillness, and to choose differently. But choosing differently does not mean abandoning humanity. It means engaging with it on your own terms. It means walking through the noise without becoming part of it. It means creating space where thought can breathe, and then carrying that thought into a world that desperately needs it. The intelligent individual learns, over time, that solitude and society are not enemies. They are teachers. Solitude teaches you who you are when no one is watching. Society teaches you how to bring that truth into motion. In wisdom, the rarest kind is knowing when to be still and when to speak, when to hold the silence and when to share the flame. True intelligence is not hiding in the shadows. It is moving through the light without being blinded by it. It is refusing to perform, even when the world demands a mask. It is walking into a crowded room and knowing that your worth does not depend on being seen. It is listening to others without losing your own voice. It is remembering that freedom is not found in being alone. It is found in knowing that you can be alone and still choose to connect. So if you've ever felt out of place in the social fabric of the world, know this: your difference is not a flaw. It is a compass. And the silence you cherish is not emptiness. It is preparation. For when you do choose to speak, the world will hear something it rarely does: authenticity. And that sound, though quiet, carries farther than you think. If this reflection resonated with you, stay with us. We explore the ideas, others avoid the ones that shake you, open you, and sometimes even free you. Like this video, share it with someone who walks a similar path, and let us know your thoughts below. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and turn on all notifications, because the next time you feel alone in how you see the world, we'll be right here, continuing the conversation that truly matters.